Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L, and today we are here to do something exciting. We're going to be talking about ReZero. Well, actually, I don't know why I was setting it up like that. You can see what we're going to talk about. We're talking about ReZero Episode 1, I think of the third season. I believe this is Season 3. It doesn't matter. We're at the Water City. Anyway, we're going to do this. I'm also doing it partly. I'm thinking of a commenter, Duhalt, who wants to see more videos. And I picked ReZero as the anime to give some kind of videos on. Because at the end of the day, if you're trying to write light novels in Japan, ReZero offers something really interesting in terms of just the publication journey there. And it was really interesting. Before I did something critical, I was going to talk about all 5 episodes that are out right now. But after going up and picking up volume 16, because we have actually a bunch of the ReZero volumes. We have up to 20 without interruption, and then it interrupts, and then we have some of the other volumes, 23. But after looking at volume 16 and discovering something, I remembered one of the old rules I had for myself when it came to light novel adaptations. Typically, one volume can be adapted in 4 episodes of an anime. There are some exceptions, like 86. Oh, I hope I got the number right. 86 can be adapted, one volume adapted into a full season of the anime. Hi, Coco. But with that in mind, when you look at the first episode, you see that the first episode has, 1 hour and 30 minutes? That is flat out. Considering that an episode of anime is usually about 23 minutes, you can see where I'm going with this. And that is ultimately what makes the first episode much more interesting from a review standpoint and just in general the cool stuff going on there. Anyway, please bear with me as I collect my thoughts on how I want to do this video. I think I'll begin by showing you the final shot of volume 16, because this review is actually going to turn into more of a review of the writing in the novel than it is actually probably going to be like an anime thing. But one thing that I'm going to do for these reviews is I'm going to talk about just my own personal anecdotes with novel publishing in the context of what ReZero does. Just so maybe you guys will appreciate just understanding some of the nuances when you're doing English light novels, or when you're attempting to do English light novels. Anyway, let me show you where this volume ends on. That is the final shot of the volume. You recognize what it is because you know what exactly had happened to go along with that. It's at the end of this episode as well. One cool little thing to point out here is that the loop to overcome the worst day in Subaru's life was set here in the Watergate city of Tripl-L. It's good to know this is the worst day of his life. Alright, so with that context, things get much more interesting about this first episode. Because, and this is something that has happened this year and last year with the isekais in particular, where you have a situation where I remember this episode comes out and there were reviews saying that the first episode was boring. It wasn't good because it was boring. And this criticism has been happening to Slime as well, where people are talking about, or a commenter always tells me, random, he always tells me that people are complaining about how slow Slime is. And in my mind, I know why that is. I assume I know why that is. Better to correct that. And I always think it's because anime viewers don't understand. The light novels aren't battle manga. The light novels have to tell a complete story from the cover to the end within a larger, bigger narrative. And there are exceptions in a light novel run where you are not following regular convention, but otherwise you are following regular convention. So for Slime is slow because Slime has setup parts, and Slime is also a slice of life novel. So that's why that happens. And very quickly, I just want to make it clear, is that as we go into this, the overall themes of everything I'm going to talk about, when it comes to anecdotes, there is a fundamental problem that comes about when you have to cater to the light novel audience and then suddenly you have an anime audience getting involved as well. And mind you, sorry if my words are seem a little bit too absolutist. There's nothing absolute in this, but I'm going to talk about trends and just generally what happens. because what really happens is that light novel readers have different tolerances than the anime viewers themselves. And again, speaking generally, what this ultimately causes is those problems like in Slime, or like even with this first episode of ReZero, where people will call it boring. It's because they just fundamentally, they don't know the context that created the light novel's sequencing of events, and they don't know how popular these elements are in light novel form as opposed to in anime form. It's actually a really interesting situation that occurs. And again, I will give you anecdotes about my personal experience with this writing on the in the Western side, where even though, okay, there's challenges there. Anyway, so let's come back to this. So this volume, when you look at it, what ends up happening is that volume 16 is entirely a slice of life novel. That's wild. This volume does not really have the regular elements of ReZero. And if you were to think about it, like from the perspective, you've been waiting months for this. So like from the perspective of like, you've been like, if you were to be, this is the equivalent of having to watch 20 episodes of a slice of life sequence during a battle manga, pretty much, to give you a better idea of that if you're more of an anime viewer. It makes it much cooler because now we're going from, okay, you know, you don't have the regular tension and drama and trauma of ReZero. You're just doing happy stuff. That's cool. The light novel author, what's her name, man? Tape. Like, he filled an entire volume with just slice of life, with just people being happy. That is both amazing and not that amazing. The reason it's both of it is because it really depends on like what the author has. Like if you're a battle shonen author, if you were able to fill an entire novel with slices of life, like props to you. Oh, sorry, props to you for being able to do that. But if you are a slice of life writer, that's pretty much child's play for you. But when you look at the episode, right, you see that there's not really a lot of conflict in the episode. I mean, like, you have little moments that are like thrown in there, like with Reinhardt and his grandfather and the father. You have minor conflicts, but they're not resolved. And usually, like in a slice of life volume, you have something brought up and you have a lot of resolutions happening. There's not really resolutions happening in volume 16. So it's actually, in some ways, it's a lot of just vapid, hey, this is just a nice day for them kind of thing. You're just meeting people, you're getting to see new places, you're getting to meet a bard, if you're Garfield, you're getting to have your world rocked, you're having this little girl be nice to you and all that kind of stuff. In the wider context of the ReZero stuff, though, as a piece of an arc, you understand what's going on. This is just a very long setup phase. But again, the big thing here is that you made an entire slice of life volume out of that. That's what's really cool. And typically when this happens, this is really a reward for the readers. You want to see these characters happy, and that's why in that context, this kind of move, like you spend, I don't know the original publication schedule. I'm going to assume a standard publication schedule, but if I'm wrong, please correct me. But, you know, to some degree, these kind of novels are a reward for readers. They're just like, hey, let's have a break. Now, I will say, when you put that cover there, it's like, bro, what's about to go on here? Like, what kind of insanity is going on? Because you have Betelgeuse there. Who's this crazy lady, man? Also, props to the art for the light novel as well. I mean, look at that, bro. It's good. It's super good. Anyway, man. So, maybe on a meta level, there's a level of tension because when Greed shows up, you know who he is, and you're already freaking out because you can feel the tension. So maybe when you're reading the volume, you have actually this impending sense of tension and doom because it's like, we know something bad's going to happen here because that cover is saying that something bad's going to happen here. Heck, when you watch the episode and once Greed shows up, like, something bad's going to happen here, right? It's nice that you go 1 hour and 30 minutes without something bad happening, but something bad's going to happen. That's like 5 episodes of content of nothing really bad happening other than like personal drama. But yeah, I don't know how the Japanese fandom would have taken it when this volume originally came out. But from my perspective, I would assume this is a little bit of a celebration. It's a little bit of breathing room. One thing that makes me wonder about what Kadokawa themselves enforce. Does Kadokawa, are they the ones that do ReZero? Let me just check real quick. Because Yen Press is the one that has the English rights to it. I think it's Kadokawa that has it. Anyway, The reason I'm bringing it up is more because of the things that some light novels do, like Dungeon Girl, or Is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon? They have full-on breather volumes. So to some degree, I feel like it's accepted to have a volume where it's just like a bunch of short stories, and my instinct is that when it comes to novel readers, they're a lot more willing to accept that compared to anime viewers, because novel readers typically are more patient and have better a better attention span than anime viewers, casual anime viewers. Like if you're someone that's watching YouTube videos, I think like you're kind of you're in a different classification. But the reason I bring it up is just because I think overall this volume would have been well received. Fingers crossed, I would think. But like again, ReZero is a little bit different than Dungeon Girl. ReZero has more tension usually, and it's a bit more of an experience, I feel. But I have to be really careful here because everyone's different, right? But going into my personal experiences, so I really like battle shonen. I really like writing battle type stories, and funnily enough, the books that actually do better for me are slice of life. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because in those slice of life books, I still enjoy doing the battle. Like I can't really imagine a story without central conflicts that come in the form of supernatural battles. And one big problem that usually happens is that people say my battles are really drawn out. That's not really what they're there for. They want to be there for the happy slice of life stuff. And that is definitely something that I've found occurs a lot when it comes to that kind of field. Like when it comes to English light novels, from what I've seen from my contemporaries in the space, they do better when they're doing slice of life and they're doing happy stuff and like very minimal conflict. You can still put the battles in there, but usually when you do like really depressing affairs or like affairs where like the main character isn't always winning, you tend to lose more readers because people just want to like, I don't know, power fantasy, people just want to enjoy like some subversions all the time. The reason I bring that up in the overall context of ReZero is, however, because where you have a situation where anime viewers will call this boring, you probably will have a situation where this is actually better for the metrics to do like a book like this, or like the metrics don't really go down. And honestly, if you were writing on the Western side of trying to write light novels, I can 100% guarantee you that you're going to get better feedback doing a book like this than you are doing combat heavy series. That's just how that works. That's just the reality of the trends for this side. It might be a little bit different when you have an anime behind you, but if you were to like sit down to try and do your own little light novel, honestly, you should be doing slice of life for better odds. And the reason I say better odds is because if you're a genius, like a 1 in a million genius, heck, even a 1 in a 100,000 genius, you can probably do whatever you want. But if you're not a genius and you just need to like make some money real quick with a very quick story, you really should be doing slice of life. Assuming that you have all your other fundamentals correct. So ultimately, this first part of the story, episode 1, I did see that a lot of regular anime viewers critiqued it for being boring. The entire volume is slice of life, however. Slice of life works better, or slice of life or cozy stuff in general has better metrics when it comes to publishing. The light novel most likely is correct for doing what it did. The anime viewers, this is just a fundamental audience mismatch. Anime viewers typically do not like the slowness of light novels when it comes to the casual crowd that usually talks the most about these kind of things. In the wider context, though, the tension of what this book did, I think, is really good, because like when you get to that final bit, you're like, shit, the shoe's about to drop. And when you see that Subaru is being affected by that thing, it's like, bro, like the shoe is about to drop, and drop it did. Oh, when you see that moment where Subaru's face is just warping, it was a really good moment. So, props there. I don't know the context of the audience reception in Japan, but trends in general would tell me this was a good move, even though anime viewers will call the first episode boring. This is fundamentally like book theory. Like this is what you have to do. Okay, so we covered the overall thing. Like, because it's such a long episode, like what exactly do you want me to review, right? Like I have to pick out the parts that resonate with me, and there is one spot here, because like when I'm watching this, I'm always thinking, because like, bro, I want to have a light novel published in Japan too, man. Like I want to be there. So I'm always looking at this thing, but then I'm always thinking like, well, bro, I'm not in Japan. I have to write stuff that works for the Western market. And I'm always thinking like, okay, a common complaint with people in a common complaint with my contemporaries writing their own books is that their books feel very anime. And like that criticism, I try to be very careful of it because I don't want my books to feel anime when I'm writing, for like instance, for women. If I'm writing a romance for women, which ironically, actually, I think romance for women, the more paranormal they get, the more anime they get. But like that's for another conversation. But when I'm writing like that kind of stuff, I want to make sure that I don't have that anime feel that might take away the seriousness of the situation. So I'm always trying to like, I always try to reflect on like, is this too much of an anime sequence? But then it comes down to like, okay, how do we actually identify an anime sequence? And this is going to come back to this conversation about like the expectations of novel readers versus the expectations of anime readers, or sorry, anime viewers. The reality is like, the more I think about it, I think certain things that happen in anime happen largely because you need to get things in motion. You need to have something happening on screen. And because of that, I think you have overexpressions in anime, and overall overexpressions is what I think people call a very anime-like feeling. It's very bombastic. There are two examples in the episode that really like made me stop and think. So it's really right here with Garfield, this spot right here.
ラチンス、戻ってこないと思ったら何を騒がしくしてるんだい?
He senses Julius, wait, not Julius, sorry, Reinhardt. He senses that Reinhardt is here, and he attacks him unprovoked. And you know who Reinhardt is. You know he's a good person. You understand also like the meta context of what's going on. Buddy guy felt his power and got really scared and attacked. Now, I look at that sequence and I tell myself, or I wonder to myself, like, would I put that in a book? And for me, I don't think I would, because it makes Garfield look way too stupid, and you already know too much of Julius's character. I wouldn't do it because I would want to avoid a very anime feeling. The anime, like the mechanic of a guy feeling someone's like murderous intent and then reacting immediately for it. It looks really cool when you do it like in a really cool sequence on like a manga page and that kind of stuff. And like for the anime's credit, you get this whole little sequence of motion and all that going on. But it is pretty over the top. It's not very genre savvy. It feels kind of lame. So like sometimes I'll work with Lit RPG, and Lit RPG, because of the website and because of the community that supports Lit RPG the most, I do find that you want to have, in general, more savvy characters. Mind you, Garfield is he's a kid, and he is not a main character, so he gets away with some of these things. But this kind of stuff, this is pretty rash behavior. I think this is one of those things that you would kind of downplay if you wanted to avoid the anime-like feeling, because this is a very anime-like thing, and in this case, unfortunately, it makes Garfield look very stupid because we all know that Reinhardt wasn't going to do anything. Like, Garfield flat out just like felt someone powerful and freaked out. Now, mind you, you have in isolation the event that happens here with Garfield freaking out and doing this, and again, it looks really cool in the anime. You have that event in isolation. But when you step back and you look at Garfield's overall character and you see that he's being played, I forget her name, was it Elsa? But like the disemboweler. When you see that he's being plagued by that, it's like, okay, well, no, I understand why he did that to Reinhardt. It's because the man's unstable. He's got a phantom on his shoulders. That's why. This is all part of a bigger effect that's going on there. But the thing is, you gotta be really careful. People will gravitate way more to the first thing they saw, and a lot of times they won't actually appreciate the explanation afterward, because if you see this moment and you're saying like, this is stupid, that feeling is going to stick there with you even if you get rationale to explain why he was being so stupid. It's not everyone that will actually go back and reflect on what they thought. That first impression really does leave a mark. So this is from the perspective of writing a book. It's different because Garfield isn't a main character, but like this is definitely like one of those spots which I think would be very anime, and it's probably something that I would not put into a book, because I don't want to have this kid just flip out like this. I wouldn't want to have to deal with that kind of character and deal with like any kind of potential of losing a reader because of that. On the other hand, however, Garfield has a character that is very prone to doing stupid things. because we've seen what he's done on other cycles. We know he's prone to like freaking out. We know he's prone to like making bad choices. So like this actually comes into one of those conversations where like if you're going to be true to your character, you continue this. It's unfortunate though if you being true to the character is actually making your readers really dislike the story. But that's one of those balancing acts where it's kind of like you gotta pick your battles in a way here. For ReZero though, once you're at volume 16, bro, you can kind of do whatever you want. So you know, like that's kind of how it goes. A lot of times, and this is why you see like a lot of light novels a lot of isekais usually start the same. ReZero's different. ReZero's a beast of a different era, but a lot of isekai novels usually start the same and then they kind of diverge after they get to volume 3. And that just happens because by volume 3 you have your install or you have your audience, and you're probably just gonna get you got more freedom because now you've got an audience, and if it's a big audience you can continue doing whatever you want as long as you don't deviate too much from the core premise of your series. Funny fact for those that don't know, the first book in your series will always sell the best, and then when you put out your second book will almost always sell half as much as your first book. That's just the reality of how it works with these kind of things. There's a big drop off between first and second books, at least with the Western side. I don't know how the Japanese side would fare when you bring in the fact that you have multiple promotional materials that come in very staggered cycles. And when I say staggered cycles, I mean like you start off as a light novel or a web novel, you get the light novel, you get a manga, you get the inflow of the manga fans coming into the light novel to know what happens next, and then you get the anime, which causes the manga to get an inflow, which then causes the light novel to get another inflow. So like it's a little bit different in that regard. Usually adaptations do all kind of wonky things to your book metrics. Anyway, okay, this is the other sequence. So this is the other sequence that I would say is very anime-like, because you have a little girl. Already, whenever you have a little girl being taken seriously like an adult, you already know you're already in anime territory. But if you were to try and describe that sequence in a book, right, it turns into, and I already kind of forget what happened here, but Mimi suddenly jumped onto the couch. She leaped across the table and jumped right into Garfield, wrapping her hands around his neck, looking into him. Want to eat some together, she asked. So when you have that sequence there, it's very over the top, very expressionate, very rude for her to just be jumping into someone's room like that, getting her dirty feet all over the furniture and all that, if I'm remembering right. But very over the top, very like no one in real life would ever do that. That's way too much. It's a tiny little girl getting really like touchy-feely with a guy just like that. That's 100% a very anime-like sequence. It's very expressive, very over top. Writing that in a novel, honestly, you know, when you're doing that, it's like, yeah, 100%. This is very anime-like with the context of everything else. Actually, I think I might have even found the page sequence that went there. I wonder if I could find the exact same thing. Okay, so like I just read through the sequence here very quickly, and what's really interesting is that this little sequence that I just played here isn't actually, that sequence where she runs across isn't actually in the novel, which I feel like, okay, it's not in the part that I read through, but I'm also at the part where he said, "I'm very sorry, I tend to lose my composure when it comes to my family." And then that's where this scene happened. And it's not there. It might be somewhere else. Like she already hopped on stuff earlier. But okay. Tentatively, if that scene is in fact not in there, it kind of like expresses the animeism. So let's talk as if that scene is truly anime original, specifically Mimi jumping across everything to hug Garfield like that and to like latch onto him. Yeah, no, I'm even like reading it over just again, and it does not happen in there at all. So like I feel to some degree a little bit of validation about like the issue with scenes in novels and scenes in anime and what makes something feel very anime-like. If I'm correct and that scene is in fact not in the book here, that's indicative of what I'm talking about. It's very awkward to like write those kind of scenes in there, but for an anime it's a little bit different because anime are so over the top fundamentally, and also because I think to some degree you can't just have people talking. It's not like in film, like where a real person will have a lot of micro expressions and be able to tell a story with their face. Like in anime you have much more static faces, right? And that's why I think you actually have to add that extra bit of energy in there. Anyway, thanks for tolerating me for that quick little sequence there. Anyway, that was another sequence that I think would give a very anime-like feel. Now, there is like another thing to add in there, where if you're writing books and you're like trying to do the light novel style, if you're basing it on anime, well, like a situation like this where you have that really over-the-top actions, like of her jumping across the thing, if you go into writing a book thinking that that's normal, I wonder actually how good that's going to be for you in the long run. Because if the original material itself doesn't have it and it was added in specifically by the anime, you're adding in something that that only makes sense in anime into writing. And I don't know if you remember how I described that sequence, how it would be said in a novel. It's pretty cumbersome. That's a pretty big waste of time unless you're trying to make a really quick character introduction kind of thing. Actually, if you want to talk about the better expression of it that serves the same purpose, it's where in the book, right after a sequence about Beatrice's nature, you have Mimi cut in as she hopped over, settling into her seat beside Joshua. She helped herself to sweets on the table as she poked Joshua's cheek with her long tail. So that sequence by itself actually tells you a lot, and it also tells you that we're missing the snacks when it comes from light novel to anime. So, you know, it's an interesting little situation when it comes to adapting stuff and making something work a little bit more for an anime production. All right, so we went through a lot of technical stuff. Let's talk about the feeling of being in this final sequence and this poor kid. It took me a bit to notice that, because like when Subaru like started saying that Luzbel or like started cheering it on, that's when I knew something was wrong, and they weren't doing the red eyes glowing kind of thing just yet. But once that was happening, once you had the talk of all their hearts are one, it's like, oh man, their hearts are one. That means there's going to be pain shared happening, right? The tension for this scene was amazing. Like honestly, I really do wonder what it was like for a Japanese fan reading volume 16 and getting to the end and being like, brah. But yeah, no, if there's something ReZero still does really well, it's the tension. Overall, listen man, they adapted an entire light novel volume as their first episode, mind you, like 1 hour and 30 minutes, but still worth it. Worthy of praise, what they did. I don't feel like anything important was missing. The final little bit there, very good tension. And you know what? The first 5 episodes have made me kind of feel like I want to read. I don't want to wait for the rest of the episodes. So I think the anime is doing a good job in that regard. I wish I could tell you more about what I wish I could just gush forever about the final sequence in the first episode just because of how good it was. In general, just the eeriness of it, and then realizing that Subaru is affected by this power as well. I was really hoping he'd pull some kind of privilege here, some kind of exception, but no, he's susceptible to it, which made episode 2 really, really good in terms of like, shit, how are you going to solve that one? But yeah, guys, volume 16. I truly respect the author for what they did here. And also, you know, I'm getting older. I don't know if people used to watch my old videos, but I do try to be much nicer to the stuff I'm reviewing nowadays. It's partly because I'm old, tired, and also partly because of business and whatnot. I want to be careful about the things I say about the other authors in general, because you never know. But yeah, no man, I enjoyed episode 1. I'm really glad that Commenter Duhalt asked me to do ReZero. Guys, let me know what you thought down below. I know it's a little bit of a different kind of review, but that's the context behind episode 1 and what it's all about. and the unique little issues that are here and there. You know, to some degree, actually, this is another consideration now that I'm thinking about it, because Danmachi typically skips these type of volumes. When they have a slice of life volume, they typically skip it, maybe only adapting one segment of it. They might have done one full episode covering volume 16 because they knew that doing week to week the way that Slime does it, of a super slice of life novel with very little mystery or intrigue in it, could have been very, very bad for their metrics. So doing it all in one episode, that actually might have been extremely strategic. That's smart. That's business. If that's true, that's the business side of anime production and distribution coming into play there. And also, it is, if that is true, that is a acknowledgement of the problem that comes with these type of volumes. And again, I think the biggest proof is Dungeon Girl typically skips the majority of their slice of life volumes. That's food for thought. We'll have to see if it continues happening in the future. Guys, let me know what you thought down below. Until next time, I hope you have an absolutely great day.